I ran through the hospital halls to see my husband in the operating room. My heart was pounding so hard I couldn't breathe. And right as I reached for the door, a nurse grabbed my wrist and whispered, "Quick, ma'am, hide and trust me. It's a trap." 10 minutes later, when I finally saw him, when I saw what he was doing, I froze. Because it turns out he wasn't the victim tonight. He was the one setting everything up. Before I tell you what happened next, please like this video, subscribe, and tell me where in the US you're listening from. I want to know how far this story travels. I never imagined that the night my life shattered would begin so quietly. It was a little past midnight, and Atlanta was drowning in the kind of rain that felt biblical sheets of water slapping against my apartment windows, hard enough to rattle the glass. I remember pacing the living room in the dim glow of a single lamp, hugging my arms around myself, because the cold wasn't just from the storm outside, it came from the silence in the room. My husband Tariq should have been home hours ago. He had left at 6 for a so-called client meeting, promising he'd be back for dinner. But the chicken turned cold. The candles I lit for our make-peace dinner burned down to stubs. And every call I made went straight to voicemail. I told myself he was fine. I told myself the rain caused delays. I told myself not to overthink the argument we'd had that afternoon. But truthfully, the fight wouldn't leave my mind. It was about money again. Specifically, the new insurance policy he had pushed me to sign, the one with premiums so high it made my head hurt. I had told him we couldn't afford it. He told me I didn't understand long-term protection. Protection for who I had asked. He walked out without answering. By 12:20 a.m., I felt nauseous with dread. I kept glancing at the door like he'd materialized through it, dripping wet and annoyed as usual. But the night just got wetter, darker, colder. When the landline rang, our dusty old landline we never used, I nearly screamed. The sound sliced through the silence like a knife. I grabbed it with trembling hands, praying it was Tariq. Instead, a man's voice answered, urgent and clipped. "Is this Mrs. Nia Harrison?" My breath stopped. Yes, this is she. "Ma'am, your husband has been in an accident. He was brought into Atlanta General Hospital with severe internal injuries. They've called in Dr. Alastair Vaughn for emergency surgery. You need to come immediately." For a moment, my knees simply disappeared. I felt the world tilt sideways. No air, no sound. Just that sentence hitting me like a brick. I grabbed my keys and ran. I didn't care that I was wearing slippers. I didn't care that rain hammered my face the second I stepped outside. I didn't even lock the door behind me. My car fishtailed twice on the slick roads, but I didn't slow down. My mind was spinning with images of Tariq bleeding, broken, dying. I kept whispering, "Please be alive," as if the universe might hear me through the storm. When I reached the hospital, the parking lot was overflowing. I left the car crooked across 2 spaces and sprinted through the sliding doors, soaked, shaking my clothes, clinging to my skin. My husband, Tariq Harrison. He was brought here, I gasped to the front desk nurse. "They said he's in surgery." "Operating room 3, she replied, pointing without looking up. "4th floor. Use the emergency stairs. Elevators are down." I bolted toward the stairwell, boots slapping against the tile, heart racing faster with every step. The stairwell smelled like damp cement and disinfectant. I pushed myself upward, 2 steps at a time. By the time I reached the 4th floor, I was breathless and dizzy. The hallway was dim, unusually quiet for a hospital. The overhead lights flickered faintly, and everything smelled like antiseptic, sharp enough to burn my throat. At the end of the corridor, behind a wide glass pane, glowed the red sign I was desperate and terrified to see: OPERATINGROM 3INSESSION. I pressed my palm to the door, tears already blurring my vision. I needed to see him. I didn't care if they yelled at me. My hand had barely grazed the handle when something fast, someone grabbed my wrist. Hard. I stumbled backward with a gasp. A woman in scrubs stood behind me, breathing fast as if she had run. Her hair was tucked into a surgical cap, but her dark eyes were wide and terrified. "Don't go in there," she whispered. I blinked, confused, heart pounding. "What, my husband? He's in there." "He know," she hissed, gripping my arm tighter. "Listen to me. You cannot go into that room." My voice cracked. Who are you, Ayana?" she whispered. "I'm a surgical nurse. Please, you have to hide. Right now." Hide from what? From them. The word then punched me with a wave of cold so sharp it made my hands shake. "I don't understand," I stammered. "My husband is in surgery. I have to. That's not a surgery. It's a setup." My entire body went rigid. "What are you talking about?" Her eyes flicked down the hallway nervously. "I don't have time to explain. They can come out any second. If they see you, they'll take you somewhere and you won't come back. Please, please, ma'am, hide and trust me." My mouth went dry. "Who is they?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled me by the arm hard enough that I stumbled and dragged me toward a narrow door beside the OR. "Please," she whispered again, voice cracking. "You have to trust me." And something in her eyes, raw fear, desperation, maybe guilt, told me she wasn't lying. Without another word, I let her pull me inside a dark locker room, the door closing behind us with a soft click that felt final. She locked it. My heart hammered so violently I thought I might faint. "Stay quiet," Ayana breathed. "No matter what you hear." "But what's happening?" I whispered. She backed away from me, tears in her eyes now. "Your husband is not who you think he is." And before I could ask a single question, she pointed toward the crack in the door, her voice dropping to a trembling whisper that chilled me to the bone. 10 minutes from now, you're going to see the truth. And it's going to break you." My blood ran cold, and I realized in that moment that the night hadn't just been stormy. It had only just begun. I could barely hear my own breathing inside that cramped locker room. The air smelled of detergent and metal, and every sound in the hallway felt 10 times louder through the thin door footsteps, the faint hum of machinery, the echo of voices I couldn't quite make out. Ayana stood with her ear pressed to the door, her hands trembling just enough for me to notice even in the dark. I pulled my wet hair away from my face, swallowing hard. "Tell me what's going on," I whispered. "Please." "My husband is in there. He's dying." "No," she breathed, shaking her head. "He isn't dying. He isn't even hurt." The words hit me like a slap. "What do you mean they said he had internal bleeding?" That was the script, she whispered. The ER report was typed manually, and the paramedics who brought him in weren't from EMS. They were hired. I stared at her, my mouth falling open. That doesn't make sense. Why would anyone? Because tonight wasn't an accident. Her voice trembled as she leaned closer. Tonight was staged. My stomach twisted violently. Staged for what? Ayana took a breath that shuddered in her chest. "For you." I felt my knees weaken. "What do you mean for me?" She finally turned fully toward me, her expression pale and stricken. "Look, before I found you in the hallway, I was delivering a file to Dr. Vaughn. It was a routine pre-op packet, nothing suspicious. But when I walked in, Tariq wasn't on the table. He was standing, talking. My pulse thundered in my ears. Standing, he's supposed to be unconscious." "Exactly," she whispered. That's what made me stop. She kept glancing at the door as she spoke, as if afraid someone might burst in at any moment. I heard him talking with Vaughn and that woman, Shanice. Laughing. Planning. My breath hitched. Planning what her eyes met mine, filled with a fear I recognized instantly. The kind you only feel when you know a truth so dark it poisons you. Planning what they're going to tell you after they finish surgery. Planning what lie they'll use to get you alone. Planning how they'll separate you from the public, from anyone who could help you. My mouth felt dry as sand. Why would my husband, why would Tariq? She raised a hand gently to silence me. Because they don't need you alive, Nia. A cold wave rolled across my skin. No. No. Tariq loves me.
He pushed you to sign a new insurance policy 3 weeks ago, she said quietly. My stomach dropped as if the floor gave way beneath me. He told you it was to protect you both, but the policy was on your life, Nia, not his, and the payout is massive. I felt my heart slam painfully against my ribs. I remembered the paperwork spread across our kitchen table. How irritated he became when I questioned the cost. How he told me to stop overthinking everything. I had trusted him.
God, I had trusted him. That doesn't mean tonight was meant for you, Ayana said softly, her eyes glistening. Not for him. Something inside me cracked a thin fissure of terror spreading through my chest. But why bring him here? Why fake a surgery because a medical emergency is the easiest way to isolate you? She whispered. Once you're emotionally shaken, terrified, and alone, it's easy to hand you consent forms, papers you'll sign without reading. And once they move you to a private evaluation room, her voice trailed off. But I didn't need her to finish. The image flashed in my mind like lightning. Me, on a table, surrounded by strangers in scrubs. Tariq crying fake tears. Vaughn telling me the anesthesia was safe. A needle. Darkness. And never waking up again. My hands began to shake uncontrollably. No, I whispered, refusing to accept it. No, he wouldn't kill me. Nia, Ayana whispered, stepping closer. I saw him. He wasn't scared. He wasn't hurt. He was excited. I felt my throat tighten. Excited like a man who finally solved a problem, she said. And you were the problem. The tears I'd been fighting spilled over at last. Not sobs, just silent burning tears that blurred the edges of the room. Ayana squeezed my shoulder. Listen, I know this is too much, but you have to stay quiet right now. If they know you overheard anything, it will be over. I covered my mouth with both hands, trying to steady my breath. I thought of the argument we had hours earlier. The way he slammed the door. The coldness in his eyes when he said, "You make everything so hard." I thought it was just another fight. I didn't know it would be the last warning I'd ever get. A sudden noise snapped us both to attention, the click of a door opening down the hall. Light spilled into the corridor. Someone laughed. Tariq's voice. I nearly choked on air. Ayana pressed a finger to her lips and motioned for me to follow. She crouched near the door and peered through the narrow crack, then stepped back, gesturing for me to look. My heart hammered against my ribs as I pressed my eye to the slit of light. At first, all I saw was the hallway. Empty. Quiet. Then 3 shadows emerged. Tariq walked out first, not limping, not bandaged, not bleeding. Talking. Laughing. Completely healthy. His hair was slicked back, his skin clean, no trace of accident trauma. He wore a surgical gown, but it hung open at the back, revealing his clothes underneath dry, unrumpled. Behind him came a tall man with cold gray eyes, wiping his hands with a white towel, Dr. Vaughn. And then the woman Chanice, her lips painted wine red, her dress shimmering beneath the doctor's coat she wore like a joke. My stomach clenched as she leaned into Tariq, whispering something that made him chuckle. While I was hiding in a dark room thinking he was dying. My breath shook as their voices drifted down the hallway. Perfect execution, Tariq said, checking his watch. By morning, she'll sign whatever we hand her. Of course she will. Shock makes the mind pliable. Shanice laughed softly. I can already picture her face crying and clueless. Poor girl. Tariq smirked. She always was too trusting. The world tilted. My vision faded at the edges. I felt Ayana's hand steady me before I collapsed. Now you see, she whispered, her voice a thin thread of sound. Now you know why I pulled you in here. For the first time in my life, I realized I had married a stranger, a monster. And the worst part wasn't the lie. It wasn't the betrayal. It was how easily he threw me away, like I had never mattered at all. My tears dried, instantly replaced with something stronger, something heavier, something dangerous. Fear, fury, and the beginning of something even darker, resolve. Because if Tariq thought I would break tonight, he didn't know me at all. I don't remember breathing for the next few seconds. All I could do was stare through that tiny crack in the door, while everything I believed about my marriage burned to ash. Tariq looked alive, too alive. The way he walked, relaxed, shoulders steady steps, hands gesturing as he spoke, none of it belonged to a man who'd supposedly suffered a near-fatal car crash. And then there was his face. No bruises, no cuts, no hint of pain. Just that familiar, arrogant half-smile I used to think was charming, but now looked like a mask peeling away to reveal something far uglier. Something rotten. Ayana pulled me back gently, her hand steadying my arm. I didn't realize until then that I was shaking so hard, my teeth were almost chattering. You understand now, she whispered. This isn't a hospital emergency. This is premeditated. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice from cracking. But why stage an entire surgery? Why make it look like he's dying? Because they needed you here, Ayana said. Alone, panicked, vulnerable. I pressed a hand to my chest, struggling to keep my heartbeat steady. The fluorescent light above us flickered, casting long shadows against the floor, and it made everything feel even more unreal, like I had fallen straight into someone else's nightmare. But it was mine, and it was happening right now. What do we do? I whispered. You can't stay here. They'll start looking for you soon, Ayana said, glancing around. Vaughn is paranoid. If anyone sees you hiding near the OR, he'll assume you overheard something. She wasn't wrong. The fear clawing at my throat was enough proof. Tariq's voice drifted again from the hallway, and I tensed instinctively. He was closer now, too close. She'll be completely broken by tomorrow morning, he was saying. We'll tell her the surgery saved me, but there's a blood clot they discovered. Needs immediate removal. Extremely high-risk, Shanice giggled. And she'll be stupid enough to sign it. Exactly, Tariq said. She'll think she's saving me. The irony is, she'll be authorizing her own death. I squeezed my eyes shut. My stomach curled as bile burned the back of my throat. Ayana's hand tightened around mine. Don't make a sound, she mouthed. We stood frozen as their steps echoed past the door. Vaughn's voice lingered a moment longer, crisp and cold, like steel. Once she's admitted to pre-op, a simple overdose of anesthesia will do the work. Clean. No evidence. And the insurance payout clears in full. A chill sliced through me. Good, Tariq murmured. By next week, Switzerland will be our fresh start. Switzerland. Our honeymoon dream destination. The country he always said we'd visit when we were financially ready. Turns out, he just planned to visit without me. When the voices finally faded down the hallway, my legs nearly buckled. Ayana gently guided me back to sit on a small bench against the wall. I'm so sorry, Nia, she whispered. I wish I didn't have to be the one to tell you this. I shook my head slowly. No, No, you don't understand. This can't be real. Tariq isn't like this. He's... Not a murderer, I covered my face with both hands. Hot tears slipped between my fingers. He wouldn't kill me. He just wouldn't.
People do unimaginable things when they're drowning, Ayana said quietly. His company's debt is massive. Millions. The kind you don't recover from. Her words stabbed through me. I'd known Tariq was stressed lately, restless, pacing the house at night, taking calls in the bathroom, coming home, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. But I thought it was work pressure, maybe even an affair. I could handle betrayal from his body, even from his heart.
But betrayal from his soul, from his hands that I wasn't ready for. You said the policy is in my name, I whispered. Yes, you're the insured. He's the beneficiary. And he forged the medical report, he altered it, she corrected. Dr. Vaughn is the one who submitted the false ER data. My eyes stung again. I was supposed to die tonight. She hesitated, then nodded. Or tomorrow morning. They were still deciding which timeline worked better. I pressed a shaking hand to my throat, trying not to break down again. Ayana, thank you. Thank you for saving me. I didn't save you, she whispered. Not yet. The way she said yet made my stomach tighten again. What do we do first? You must get out of this hallway, she said firmly. If Vaughn or Tarhim sees you, they'll know something's wrong. So where do I go? I can't just walk out the front door. They'll find me. No, she said. You're not leaving this hospital tonight. The words hit wrong. What? Why not? Because if you leave and they realize you know something, they'll use the hospital security against you. They'll say you're unstable from stress. They'll claim you're hallucinating. My breath caught. They'd lock me in psych evaluation. Exactly. My heart pounded so violently I felt it in my ears. So I'm trapped, not trapped, she said. But we need evidence before we make a move. Strong evidence. Evidence that can't be erased or twisted. You mean we have to catch them? Yes. My body trembled so hard she had to grip both my shoulders to steady me. Nia, she said softly. You're not alone. I'm with you. But we need to be smart. They're powerful here. Especially Vaughn. If we make one wrong step, we both disappear. A cold ripple slid down my spine. So what's the plan? She exhaled slowly. We'll wait for 10 minutes. Let them get comfortable. Let them think everything is going exactly the way they planned. Then I'm going to take you upstairs. Upstairs, she nodded. To him. I blinked, stunned. Tariq, why her expression darkened. Because the only way to beat him is to let him believe he's still winning. A heavy silence fell between us as her words sank deep into my bones. Tariq, the man I shared a bed with, the man I married, the man I defended countless times, wanted me dead. And now I was going to have to look him in the eyes and pretend I didn't know. My stomach twisted in knots. My chest felt tight, like a band was squeezing it slowly. But beneath all that fear, something else flickered. A spark. Small, but alive. Anger. Not the erupting kind, the cold kind. The kind that grows sharp, focused, deadly. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. Okay, I whispered, my voice steadier than I expected. Take me to him. Ayana didn't move for almost a full minute. She just watched me, her eyes steady as if she were measuring whether I would collapse or stand. When she finally nodded, it wasn't just approval, it was a silent pact. A decision that bound us together in a hallway where the walls smelled like bleach and secrets. Follow my lead, she whispered. But remember, your face cannot betray a thing. If he even senses something is off, he will turn the entire hospital against you. I took a deep breath, wiping the last trail of tears with my sleeve. I can do it. Good. She cracked the door open, slowly scanning the hall. Empty. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that felt artificial, like the hospital was holding its breath. Ayana motioned for me to step out. The linoleum floor was cold under my shoes, and every step felt dangerously loud to my ears, even though the hallway swallowed the sound. We moved quickly, sticking to the shadowed side. My heart hammered against my ribs as we passed the glowing red light above operating room 3. The door was cracked open now, the fake emergency surgery I almost ran into. I forced myself not to look inside. If I did, I'd imagine myself on that table, strapped down, breathing mask over my face, Tariq watching from the corner with fake grief plastered on like cheap makeup. Ayana nudged me when I slowed. Don't think about it, she murmured. Just breathe. We turned a sharp corner that led to the recovery wing. The lights there were dimmer, softer, almost warm, which made the dread in my stomach twist harder. Everything comfortable in this place was a lie. I didn't realize how badly I was shaking until Ayana reached for my hand again. Nia, she whispered, this next part is the hardest. You'll have to see him up close. I know. You'll have to let him touch you. A chill shivered down my spine. I know. You'll have to pretend you still believe he loves you. The betrayal hit me like a punch, even though I had already heard everything. My throat closed as I whispered, and I do that so, he doesn't kill you before we're ready. She stopped outside the recovery room door. The small rectangular window looked into a dim space where a single monitor beeped steadily. I couldn't see him yet. Ayana placed her palm flat against the door. Remember your role, she murmured. A devastated wife. Terrified, fragile, needing reassurance from the only person she trusts. But I don't trust him. You don't have to, she said softly. You just have to make him trust you. I closed my eyes, inhaled through my nose, and let the fear settle like a thin coating over my skin. It wasn't hard. I was terrified. All I had to do was let that fear look like love. When I opened my eyes again, Ayana looked almost startled. There, she whispered. That's the face. Don't lose it. She pushed the door open. The soft beeping filled the air first, then the smell of disinfectant, then the sight of him. Tariq, lying on the bed, tubes taped to his arm, a monitor printing his vitals, a thin blanket pulled over his chest. He looked fragile, vulnerable, like a man fighting for his life. I knew it was all fake. Makeup, controlled breathing, a saline drip, nothing more. A performance. But my body reacted before my brain did. I froze. Because no matter how much he betrayed me, I still recognized the man I used to love. And that hurt more than anything. Vaughn stood beside him, flipping through a chart. Shanice stood near the window, arms crossed her face, twisted with an expression that was trying to mimic concern, but looked more like annoyance. Vaughn noticed us first. He looked up with a calm, rehearsed smile. Mrs. Miller, he said warmly, you made it just in time. He's stabilizing. I swallowed and stepped forward, slowly clinging to Ayana's earlier instructions, like a lifeline. Tariq, baby, my voice cracked perfectly, pain, confusion, devotion. All real, just redirected. Tariq turned his head slightly, slow and weak. Too slow, too weak. Oscar worthy. He forced a half smile. Nia, you're here. Hearing his voice made my stomach twist violently. I hated how familiar it sounded, how it still had the ability to undo me. But I leaned closer anyway, letting my fingers brush his hand. He squeezed gently, too gently, considering his supposed accident. Another slip. Another lie. I let out a trembling breath. I thought I lost you. He squeezed again. Never. I'm right here. His eyes studied my face, searching for cracks. He was checking if I suspected anything. I forced my tears to fall, forced my voice to break. What happened? Vaughn stepped forward before he could speak. Your husband experienced significant internal bleeding from the impact of the crash. Ayana stood behind me, perfectly still. Vaughn continued. We stopped the bleeding in time, but during surgery we found something concerning. He paused dramatically. Chanice's lips twitched in amusement behind him. A blood clot, Vaughn said gravely. Near the liver. Small but dangerously placed. Tariq's breath hitched convincingly. Nia, honey, we're not out of the woods. I let my chin quiver. What does that mean? Vaughn pulled a clipboard from the counter, flipping to a form with a yellow tab. It means he needs another surgery. Tomorrow morning, before the clot moves. He held out the clipboard. We need your consent to proceed. My vision swam for a moment. This was the moment Ayana warned me about. The moment where a signature would seal my fate. A silent countdown ticked in my spine. I forced my hand forward, trembling. Delicate. Scared. Too scared to read. Exactly what they expected. Vaughn smiled faintly as if pleased. Tariq watched me with narrowed eyes, waiting. Measuring. I let the tip of the pen touch the paper just barely, then I broke. Can't I? Sobbed, pulling my hand back and covering my face. I can't make this decision alone. Not without his mother. She'll want to pray with me. Please, please, just give me time. Tariq exhaled sharply, as if frustrated but trying to look patient. Nia, baby, we don't have time. I need air, I choked out. Just a minute. Please. Vaughn exchanged a glance with Chanice. Annoyed. Suspicious. But before they could argue, Ayana stepped forward. I'll take her, she said quickly. Just a moment. She's overwhelmed. It's normal. Vaughn hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But hurry. As Ayana led me out the door, closing behind us, I finally let my real expression surface, rage so cold it spread like ice through my veins. Ayana whispered, You did perfect. But I shook my head. No, I whispered. That wasn't acting. I looked back at the door. If they think I'm breakable, let them think it. My voice hardened into something I barely recognized. Because I'm not breaking. I'm planning. Ayana and I barely made it 3 steps away from the recovery room before my legs almost gave out. She caught my elbow, steadying me as I pressed my back against the cool wall. My chest was tight, every breath short and sharp, like my lungs were shrinking inside me. Not because I was overwhelmed by fake grief, but because of the truth boiling beneath my ribs. Tariq had tried to kill me. He'd looked me straight in the eyes, squeezed my hand the way he used to when we first dated, and said never. I'm right here. I almost laughed at the cruelty of it. Ayana leaned close, her voice a whisper barely above the hum of the hospital vents. You handled that better than I expected. I wiped my cheek, masking the fury I felt with trembling fear. I didn't handle anything, I whispered. I just did what any woman who thought her husband was dying would do. Exactly, she murmured. That's why they didn't suspect you, not yet. Her eyes flicked toward the recovery room door. But they will if we don't move fast. My mind replayed the moment Tariq squeezed my hand. The warmth of his palm, the softness, the lies. You said we need evidence, I whispered. Enough that they can't silence or discredit me. Yes. Ayana lowered her voice even further. I'm going to walk you to the family lounge. Sit there. Look devastated. Anyone watching will believe it. Meanwhile, I'll go gather everything I can before Von realizes I've been gone too long. You're going alone? I asked, fear spiking. Ayana, he could. I know what he's capable of, she said. I know better than anyone. That's why I can slip under his radar better than you. There was something in her voice, something haunted, that made me look at her more closely. You said you've suspected Von for a long time, I whispered. Why? Her eyes flicked away for a moment, the pain in them raw. Because she said quietly 3 years ago I lost someone because of him. My breath caught. Someone you love? She nodded once. My sister. She was pregnant, healthy, strong, came in for a minor procedure. Von was her surgeon. Her voice cracked ever so slightly. She didn't go home. I felt a cold ache in my chest. Ayana, I'm so sorry. I filed complaints, Ayana continued. None went through. Von is protected, funded, powerful. Her eyes hardened. But when I saw him laughing with Tariq tonight, planning to do the same thing to you, I couldn't watch another woman die just because he decided it. A heavy silence fell between us. A silence thick with fury, grief, and something deeper purpose. She straightened her shoulders. Let's go. Stay close. We moved quickly toward the family lounge. The hospital felt strange, too quiet for the late-night chaos I knew hospitals usually had. As if certain areas had been cleared on purpose. As if someone had orchestrated the silence. The family lounge sat at the end of the hall, a small room with muted lighting, old magazines, and carpet that smelled faintly of coffee and tired footsteps. Ayana guided me inside, scanning the corners. Sit on that chair, she said. Hunch forward. Hands clasped. Look like you're praying. I sat, body trembling in the exact way she instructed. She crouched down in front of me. Listen carefully. I'm going to get 3 things: the true medical file, the ER entry logs, and the footage of Tariq walking into the hospital. And the insurance documents, I whispered. Already screenshotted, she said. But we need more than that. Her eyes locked on mine. If anything happens, if anyone approaches you, cry. Sob. Ask for updates. Look like a terrified wife. That's your shield. I nodded, swallowing hard. When will you be back? 10 minutes if things go right, she said. 20 if things go wrong. My breath hitched. And if they go very wrong, her jaw clenched. Then run. Don't look back. Don't wait for me. Before I could speak again, she squeezed my hand once and slipped out, closing the door softly behind her. The moment she left, the air seemed to thicken. The hum of the fluorescent lights grew louder, filling the silence with a low, oppressive drone. I stared at my reflection in the darkened window, a woman hunched, shaking, drenched in rain and grief. A woman who had spent years believing in a man who regarded her as disposable. I pressed my hands together until my nails bit my skin. I won't die here, I whispered. I won't be your victim. Minutes crawled by. 5, 7, 10. My heart hammered as I watched the hallway through the small window. No sign of Ayana. Just the occasional flash of a nurse hurrying by, heads down, eyes tired. 11 minutes. 12. 13. My stomach twisted. Something felt wrong. I tried to steady my breathing, but every second stretched longer, pulling my nerves tighter. 14 minutes. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming toward the room. My pulse jumped. I sat straighter, hands trembling, letting panic rise to the surface like Ayana instructed. The footsteps stopped outside the door. The handle turned. I felt my heart slam so hard I almost gasped. The door creaked open, and Tariq stepped inside. My breath froze mid-throat. He wore the same patient gown, but now he was sitting up straighter, moving more naturally, as if the weakness from earlier had evaporated the moment I left the room. His expression was carefully crafted into concern, but his eyes were sharp. Calculating, taking in every detail of my posture, my fear, my trembling hands. "Nia," he murmured, closing the door behind him. "Why are you sitting alone in the dark?" My throat tightened painfully. "Tariq," I whispered, voice breaking. I just needed a minute. I thought I was going to lose you." He walked toward me slowly, too slowly, like a predator testing the ground between us. "Come here," he said softly. "Let me hold you." Every instinct inside me screamed, "Don't let him touch you." But I let him kneel in front of me. Let him take my hands. Let him look into my eyes like he still owned me. "You scared me so much," I whispered, letting tears fill my eyes. I thought you were dying." "I'm here," he murmured. "I'm not going anywhere." "Lie." His thumb stroked the back of my hand, a gesture he used to comfort me. Now it felt like a mark, like he was claiming ownership before removing me permanently. "Dr. Vaughn told me you need the second surgery," I whispered. "That there's a clot." "Yes," he said softly. "It's risky, but I'll be okay. I just need you to sign the consent form." His eyes glittered, watching, measuring, testing. My heartbeat stuttered. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You want me alive, don't you?" The question slithered under my skin like venom. "Of course I do," I breathed. "Then sign it." I swallowed hard, letting fear choke my voice. I need a minute." "Please." His jaw twitched. Annoyance flickered for a split second. The real Tariq surfacing. "Nia," he murmured, masking irritation with softness. "This isn't a time to be emotional." The irony almost made me laugh. Emotional, he wanted me calm while signing my own death warrant. "I'll sign," I whispered, lowering my gaze. "I promise." I just needed to breathe. His shoulders relaxed slightly. He bought it. For now, he squeezed my hand again. "Good. I knew you'd understand." Then he leaned in so close, I felt his breath on my cheek and whispered with a softness that chilled me more than any scream ever could, "Don't make this harder than it has to be." And in that moment, all doubt evaporated. Tariq wasn't conflicted. He wasn't pressured or manipulated. He'd chosen this. He wanted me gone, permanently. And I realized something else too. Tariq was getting impatient. Very impatient. If Ayana didn't return soon, I didn't know how long I could keep playing the terrified wife before the predator in him stopped pretending altogether. The moment Tariq whispered, "Don't make this harder than it has to be," something inside me snapped so violently, it felt like a physical tear, like a veil ripped off the last piece of my denial. His breath was warm against my cheek, but the warmth didn't comfort me. It suffocated me. It stank of lies, of calculations, of a man rehearsing lines, designed to manipulate, to corner, to control. I knew I had to answer. Silence would only make him suspicious. So I forced myself to inhale, trembling, just enough to look believable. "I'm not trying to make anything hard," I whispered, keeping my gaze downward like a submissive wife fighting back fear. I've never been this scared." Tariq softened his expression only superficially. His eyes remained empty. "I know, baby," he murmured, brushing a strand of damp hair from my forehead. "But you can trust me." My stomach knotted violently. Trust him. Trust the man who tried to orchestrate my death with a clipboard and a fake surgery. Trust the man who laughed about how easy I was to manipulate. Trust the man who stood over me with both love and murder in the same heartbeat. Just a little longer, Tariq continued, giving my hands a reassuring squeeze that made my skin crawl. Once this surgery is over, we can put all this behind us. Put all this behind us. Meaning once you're dead, my life begins. I swallowed hard, nodding silently. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. Gentle, familiar. Rehearse stood up. I'll tell Dr. Vaughn you're ready to sign in a few minutes, he said. Ready to die, I translated silently. Take your time. I know it's a lot. He walked toward the door. I counted every step. 1, 2, 3. At the 4th step, he stopped. My breath froze. Without turning, he said, "You always did take too long to make decisions." His tone was edged, clipped, warning me, testing me. Then he left the room. The moment the door clicked shut, I exhaled so sharply it felt like I had been holding my breath for hours. My body slumped forward, shaking uncontrollably. The fake crying had ended, but the real panic had just begun. I didn't know where Ayana was. I didn't know if she was safe. I didn't know if she'd been caught or if Vaughn had confronted her. 14 minutes had passed. She should have been back by now. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I gripped the armrests hard to steady myself, forcing my brain back into survival mode. I couldn't fall apart. Not now. Not when Tariq was seconds from deciding I was becoming inconvenient. I needed to move. I needed to buy time. I needed to stall long enough for Ayana to return, or long enough to create an opportunity to escape. But as I rose to my feet, the door suddenly swung open again. I jumped so violently I nearly fell. But it wasn't Tariq. It wasn't Vaughn. It wasn't Chenice. It was a nurse, a young one, maybe early 20s, eyes pale blue hair pulled into a messy bun, looking frazzled and exhausted. "Mrs. Harrison," she said softly. I blinked, trying to hide my suspicion. "Yes," Dr. Vaughn asked, "if you're ready to sign the consent form," she said, stepping closer with a clipboard in her hand. The form. The death warrant. I forced my breath to shake. I just need a few minutes. Her brow creased with sympathy. "I understand. But the doctor needs your signature soon. He said the clot might shift." She extended the clipboard. "If you could just initial here," I stepped back. "No. I need to pray first. Please." Just a moment. Her expression softened again. "Of course. I'll give you a minute. I'll be right outside." She left the clipboard on the table and exited the room, closing the door quietly. The moment she was gone, I grabbed the clipboard. The paper was blank, except for the consent form and a single typed line at the bottom: "Secondary operative mortality risk. Acknowledged patient's wife. Signature required." My name was already typed in. They had prepared everything. All they needed was ink. My signature. My death. I felt the room spin for a moment. If I didn't sign soon, Tariq would get angry. If I signed, I might not see the next sunrise. Tears welled in my eyes, not from fear, but from sheer frustration. I needed a miracle, or at least a distraction. As if the universe heard my silent plea, my phone vibrated. My heart leapt into my throat. I snatched it from my pocket. One new message. Unknown number. I opened it. A single line appeared. "Do an OT sign, anything. I'm coming. Ayana." I nearly collapsed with relief. Another message followed. "If anyone enters stall, if they force you downstairs, scream. Then the third message appeared. Whatever happens, DONOT, go to pre-op. My pulse raced. She knew something. Something urgent. Something that made her fear for my life more than before. I typed quickly, where are you? Are you safe? No answer. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. My fear spiked again. Suddenly, footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Coming toward the lounge. My heart slammed painfully in my chest. I shoved my phone into my pocket and sat back in the chair, trembling again. The door opened. Tariq stormed in, followed closely by Dr. Vaughn and Damit Khanis. Tariq's face was calm, but his jaw was tight. Vaughn's expression was clinical. Shanice looked like she was holding back a smirk. "Sweetheart," Tariq said, walking toward me. His tone was soothing, but his eyes were sharp as glass. "Time's up." I forced myself to stammer. I just needed more time." "There is no more time," Vaughn said. "The clot may migrate. Every minute counts." I shook my head desperately. "But I don't." Tariq crouched in front of me again, eyes narrowed. "Nia, look at me." I hesitated, then lifted my eyes slowly. His voice softened to a whisper. "You trust me, don't you? No. I trust that you're fully capable of killing me." But I forced myself to nod. "Then sign," he said, holding out the pen. My hand shook as I reached for it. Not from fear, from rage, from the knowledge that I was seconds away from being cornered. Seconds away from being taken where Ayana warned me never to go. Seconds away from being prepared for a surgery that did not exist. My fingers closed around the pen, cold metal that felt heavier than it should. Tariq watched me. Vaughn watched me. Shanice watched me. All three waited with eerie silence. And just as I lowered the pen toward the page, the fire alarm shattered the hallway. A piercing shriek that made everyone flinch. Emergency lights flashed violently. Vaughn cursed under his breath. Tariq stood up sharply. Shanice jumped, and I felt a familiar jolt of hope. Ayana. "What the hell is going on?" Tariq snapped. "We need to move her," Vaughn said. "Now." I clutched the pen tighter, and for the first time that night, the fear was no longer on me. It was on them. The fire alarm's shriek ricocheted off the walls so violently it rattled something deep inside my chest. Red strobes flashed across the corridor like frantic heartbeats, turning everything into a stuttering nightmare of light and shadow. For a second, no one moved. Tariq, Vaughn, and Shanice all froze, as if their brains were trying to interpret whether this was danger or inconvenience. Then Vaughn snapped into motion. "We need to relocate her," he barked. "Now." Tariq grabbed my arm so fast I gasped, not from pain, but from how reflexive it was. He didn't even pretend anymore. The mask he had worn earlier, concerned, sweet-loving, was gone. The real him was surfacing, impatient, irritated, constrained by my stubborn survival. "Get up," he hissed, pulling me to my feet. My mind raced. Ayana had triggered the alarm for me. She wanted chaos. She wanted distraction. She wanted their plans disrupted, which meant she was close, or in danger, or both. "Where are we taking her, Shani?" demanded, shouting over the alarm. "Downstairs," Vaughn answered quickly, tightening his grip on a folder he'd been holding. "We'll take the service elevator pre-op wing. No one will check there during an alarm." My blood ran cold. Pre-op. The exact place Ayana had begged me never to go. The place where patients were sedated. Where everything was sterile, easy to wipe clean. Where cameras were conveniently under maintenance. If they got me down there, it was over. I'd vanish between antiseptic curtains, never to wake again. I didn't think I reacted. No, I cried, wrenching my arm away from Tariq. My voice cracked with perfect terror, half real and half performed. Please, please. I don't want to move, just tell me you're okay. I clung to him, nails digging into his gown, forcing him to comfort me. It stalled, all of them. Even Von paused, annoyance cutting across his face.
Nia, not now, Tariq snapped, shaking my wrists.
Stand up.
I'm scared, I sobbed, collapsing to my knees, shaking violently. Shanice rolled her eyes.
Oh my God! Are you serious? She's doing this now, Mrs. Harrison Von said sharply. We have procedures during a fire alarm.
Get up. I can't, I sobbed. I can't breathe. I can't. I forced my chest to rise and fall in erratic, shallow gasps. Panic attack. Every medical professional's headache.
They couldn't drag me if I was limp, hyperventilating, unpredictable. Not without raising suspicion from other staff. Not during an alarm. Tariq dropped to a crouch, grabbing my chin. Nia, he growled under his breath.
Get up.
The anger in his voice was razor-edged, but the alarm kept screaming, drowning him out, forcing him to lean closer. And that was when I saw it, his fear. Not for me. Not for us. But for his plan. For the timeline. The cracks in his control. He wasn't worried about losing me. He was worried about losing the payday. Something hot and sharp slid through my chest. Not fear. Not grief. Power. I can't, I gasped, shrinking away. Please don't make me Von cursed again. Fine, we'll carry her. Let's go. Pure terror shot through my spine. They would drag me if they had to. They were desperate now. Cornered animals were more dangerous, more likely to make mistakes. Or kill. Instantly. I needed something. Anything. And then the hallway lights flickered once, twice, then burst into brightness. The alarm cut off abruptly. Silence slammed down like a hammer. For a moment, we all blinked, disoriented. Then the overhead speakers crackled. Code red cleared. All staff returned to stations. Emergency doors unlocking. Von stiffened. Damn it, he muttered. We need to move now before the floors refill. Tariq, grab her arms, Chinny said. Stop wasting time. That was my opening. I let my body go completely slack. Dead weight. As he reached down to lift me, I let my head loll to the side, eyes half closed, pupils unfocused. Fainting spell. Classic shock response. She's going out, Tariq snapped. She's losing consciousness, then get her on her feet, Von barked, stepping forward. We need her stable enough to sign Mrs. Harrison, a bright voice cut through the tension like a blade. All four of them froze. A nurse in neon pink sneakers jogged into the room, checking a small tablet in her hand. I'm here to escort you to the family safety zone until fire protocol is fully reset. Your husband's chart was flagged for immediate family risk assessment. Tariq turned, visibly irritated. We don't need that hospital policy, the nurse said cheerfully, walking toward me. All high-risk family must report downstairs. I'm here to evaluate her. She knelt in front of me.
Her hair was tucked under a patterned scrub cap. Her voice was steady, warm. But then she lifted her eyes to mine, and I recognized them. Ayana. Her eyes were the same, but her uniform, her badge, her hairstyle were completely different. If I hadn't been staring directly at her, I never would have noticed. She winked so fast, no one else could see. My heart almost burst with relief. Mrs. Harrison, Ayana said louder, playing her role perfectly. Can you stand? She's fine, Tariq snapped.
I've got her. Ayana looked up at him with wide, perfectly innocent eyes. Sir, I understand you're worried, but I need to assess her before she can be moved. She doesn't need assessment, actually, Ayana said gently. If she collapses while moving between floors, you will be personally responsible under hospital safety protocol. Vaughn's jaw tightened. Shanice shifted uneasily. Tariq's grip loosened on my arm. Ayana looked at me again. Mrs.
Harrison, are you able to stand or do you need assistance? Her words had a second meaning. Can you move or do I have to improvise something more dangerous? I blinked slowly, just once my signal that I understood. I let my trembling legs straighten as much as they could without seeming suspicious. I think I can walk, I whispered. Good, Ayana said with a warm smile. Let's get you to a safe area. She doesn't need a safe area, Vaughn barked.
She needs to sign, Ayana stood abruptly, her demeanor shifting from gentle nurse to firm authority. Dr. Vaughn, she said politely, I would never contradict a senior physician, but fire protocol overrides all non-life-saving procedures. Unless your patient is actively dying, I'm required to escort his wife out until verification is complete. A tense silence. Then footsteps approached from the hall, a security guard. Everything okay here? He asked. Vaughn masked his frustration quickly. Yes. Escort them. Tariq opened his mouth, panic flickering in his eyes. But he couldn't object. Not without attracting suspicion. Not without risking someone looking closer at his lies. Not without ruining the fate of the grieving husband. I'll come with her, he said quickly. No, Ayana replied smoothly. Patients must remain in assigned rooms. She placed a steady hand on my back. Let's go, Mrs. Harrison. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I stepped past Tariq. Away from his hands. Away from his plan. Away from the death he had designed for me. He couldn't stop me, not without revealing himself. His eyes followed me, burning with frustration, calculation, and something else. A flicker of real fear, the first crack in his confidence. Ayana guided me into the hallway. The security guard walked behind us. For a brief moment, the cold air of the hospital corridor felt like breathing oxygen after nearly drowning. Ayana leaned close enough that her words. Remy, you did perfect, she whispered. But we're not safe yet. I gripped her arm. What now? She didn't slow her steps. Her voice dropped to a razor-thin whisper. Now she said, we expose them. And the elevator doors slid open, swallowing us, before Tariq could take one step after us. The elevator doors closed with a metallic thud that felt louder than it should have, like a vault sealing shut. My breath trembled in my chest as Ayana positioned herself slightly in front of me, shielding my body from the tiny security camera in the corner. The guard stood behind us, arms folded, eyes forward. For 10 agonizing seconds, none of us spoke. The elevator hummed as it descended toward the lower floors. I felt Tariq's gaze even though he wasn't there. I felt the way his jaw clenched when I stepped past him. I felt the shift. The panic. The calculation. My defiance had changed something. And if he understood that even for a second, he would not let me leave that hospital alive. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the lobby. The doors slid open. The guard nodded once and headed down another corridor, leaving us alone at a nurse checkpoint, no bigger than a small hallway closet. For the first time since she saved me, Ayana finally allowed herself a real breath. She grabbed my wrist gently and pulled me into a supply alcove where the door closed almost silently behind us. The room smelled like disinfectant wipes and plastic packaging. Boxes of gloves were stacked to the ceiling. A mop leaned in the corner. It was the last place anyone would search. Are you hurt? She whispered, her eyes scanning my face. No, I whispered back, but they were going to drag me somewhere. Pre-op. Her jaw tightened with fury. I know. They want you where sedation is routine and witnesses are minimal. You mean they want somewhere to kill me? The words left my tongue like shards of glass. Ayana didn't soften the truth. Yes, and they're running out of time. That makes them desperate, which makes them unpredictable. My pulse hammered in my ears. You said we'd expose them, I breathed. How we need leverage, she replied. Real evidence. Not guesses. Not fear. Something undeniable. I already tried. My voice cracked. In the server room. In Vaughn's office. Everything I grabbed was a trap. I know, Ayana said quietly. That's why I didn't rely on you being able to find the evidence. The air went still. What do you mean? She looked at me with a seriousness that made my spine stiffen. I went to the command room during the fire alarm. I got inside before they noticed the loop was failing. I disabled their fake feed. So you recorded them? I whispered. Not exactly. Ayana inhaled deeply. I watched them. The camera angles didn't let me hear anything from where they dragged you. But I saw when they chased you. I saw when Tariq followed Vaughn out of the surgical wing. Their timelines contradict everything on the hospital's official report. But is that enough? I asked, panic rising. It's circumstantial. They can twist it. Not with what I have now. She reached into her scrub pocket and pulled out a tiny silver stick. A flash drive. Very small. Very innocuous. This, she whispered, is the real footage from the employee entrance. It shows Tariq walking in at midnight. Alive. Not injured. Not bleeding. Nothing that matches a trauma report. Meaning his entire story is fabricated. Meaning the emergency call that told you he was dying was part of the con. My heart lurched. So we go to security, the police. Ayana shook her head immediately. Not yet. If we go too soon, they'll claim it's tampered. They'll say you and I colluded. And while they're dragging it out in court, Tariq and Vaughn will disappear. And they will kill you before anyone proves anything. I swallowed hard. Then what? Her voice hardened. We need a confession. On record. Unshakable. They're not stupid enough to confess, I whispered. No, she replied. But they are arrogant enough. They think you're scared. They think you're confused. They think you're broken. Her eyes met mine, sharp and unwavering. I need you to use that. My breath hitched. Use what? Ayana stepped closer, lowering her voice. Your fear, your tears, your panic. They rely on underestimating you. Let them. Make them believe you're ready to sign whatever they want. Buy us a window. You want me to go back? My voice shook uncontrollably. Are you insane? They'll kill me. Not if you play the role, she said. And not if I stay behind the scenes handling the technical side. Technical side, I repeated. She nodded. There's one room left we need access to. It's locked behind biometric clearance. And Vaughn never lets anyone in. But with the alarm disruption, all access logs are scrambled for the next 45 minutes. If he leaves his office again, I can slip in. And get what his private vault. A chill crawled up my spine. He has a vault every corrupt doctor does. Hard drives. Signed papers. Unedited footage. Medical charts he doesn't want the hospital to see. My breath faltered, including anything he planned for me. Her silence confirmed it. A harsh tremor ran through my arms. Ayana grabbed my hands tightly. Nia, she whispered, you are not alone. And you are not walking into that death trap without protection. What protection? I whispered. She pulled out a hospital-issued panic pager, but this one was modified. The casing had been opened and resealed. The edges were slightly warped. If they corner you, Ayana said, click this twice. Not once. Twice. Security will think it's a wing malfunction and send 2 guards. They won't know it's linked to me. They'll think it's routine because tonight everything is chaos. What about Tariq? I asked. He hates me. He'll see through anything. He hates losing more, Ayana replied. Act defeated and he will relax. I exhaled shakily, fear tightening every muscle until my hands felt numb. I don't know if I can do this. Ayana's voice became a soft blade. You've survived everything he's thrown at you already. You walked into this hospital willingly, even though he wanted you carried out in a body bag. You can do this one thing, not because you're fearless, but because you're still breathing. She reached for the door of the supply room. Her fingers hovered on the handle. Are you ready? No. I wasn't. Every cell in my body screamed to run, to bolt out of the emergency exit, to vanish into the night. But my life wasn't the only thing hanging in the balance anymore. The truth was the only weapon that could ever end this. I swallowed the terror burning in my throat. Yes, I whispered. I'm ready. Ayana cracked the door open an inch and peeked into the hall. Go straight to Tariq, she murmured. He'll be frantic. Good. That means he'll talk. Keep him scared of losing control. And you? I asked. She slipped out first, scanning the corridor. I'll get the evidence, she said. Or I'll die trying. Her eyes locked with mine one last time. Now go, before they come looking. And with my heart pounding hard enough to bruise my ribs, I stepped out of the alcove and began walking straight toward the man who came to the hospital tonight, not to be saved, but to finish killing me. The hallway outside the supply alcove felt colder than before, as if the hospital itself sensed what was coming. My shoes squeaked softly against the polished floor, each step echoing like a countdown. I could hear the faint beeping of monitors, the distant murmur of nurses, the low rumble of carts being pushed somewhere out of sight. Normal hospital sounds, innocent sounds, but none of them belonged to the nightmare I was stepping back into. I forced my breathing to steady, but my hands still trembled slightly, the perfect disguise for fear. Real fear, manufactured fear, it didn't matter. Tariq wouldn't be able to tell the difference. He never paid attention to details unless they threatened him. As I approached the recovery ward, I felt at first a ripple in the air. Panic. Frustration. Male anger pressed into the walls like a scent. He was near. When I rounded the corner, I saw him. Tariq stood in the doorway of the recovery room, talking aggressively into his phone, pacing back and forth. His voice was low, but sharp, like he was trying not to yell but failing. I don't care about Protocol Vaughn, he snapped. Find her. She couldn't have gotten far. A pause, then more venom. No, you don't understand. If she talks to anyone before she signs, we're finished. Do you hear me? Finished. He raked a hand through his hair and hissed under his breath. Just get your team to search the first floor. I'll check the lobby. His thumb jabbed violently at the screen as he hung up. Then he turned and froze when he saw me in the hallway. His face shifted through 5 expressions in 2 seconds: shock relief, suspicion, calculation, and finally anger. Nia, he said, forcing a breathless smile that didn't reach his eyes. Where the hell have you been? I let my shoulders curl inward, shrinking myself the same way I had hundreds of times during our marriage. A familiar posture, one he expected. I got confused, I whispered. After the alarm, I panicked. I didn't know where to go. He stared at me, searching my face for signs of rebellion or knowledge. If he saw any, he'd snap.
So I let a tear fall. One slow, shaky drop down my cheek. That always worked on him. He sighed, heavily annoyed but relieved. "Come here," he said, grabbing my arm and pulling me inside the room. His fingers dug in too hard. I didn't flinch. I couldn't. "You can't disappear like that," he said. "You scared me half to death." Scared you, he meant scared him that his plan might fall apart. Tariq led me toward the chair beside the bed. The room looked different now. The fake monitors beeped softly in a steady rhythm. The overhead lights glowed too warmly, too inviting, like a staged scene in a play. Shanice stood in the corner, arms crossed, tapping her long red nails against her elbow impatiently. When she saw me, she didn't bother hiding her irritation. Finally, she muttered, "God, this is exhausting." Tariq shot her a warning look. Not now. Vaughn wasn't in the room. That meant Ayana was likely already pursuing his vault. She needed more time. I needed to buy it. I sank into the chair slowly, like someone who didn't trust their own legs. "Are you okay?" Tariq asked with exaggerated concern. "I know today has been overwhelming." I kept my eyes on the floor. "I'm scared." He crouched down in front of me, putting on the mask of the loving husband's soft eyes, gentle voice, fake tenderness dripping from every word. "I know, baby. But you don't have to be. I'm here. I'm fine. And once we get through this next procedure tomorrow, everything will go back to normal." My stomach twisted violently. "Procedure the clot," he said, lowering his voice as if delivering tragic news. "Vaughn found a clot near my liver. It's dangerous. I could die without the surgery." Shanice let out a dramatic sigh as if the performance was boring her. "Just give her the papers, Tariq." He nodded and stood pulling a clipboard from the rolling table beside the bed. He set it in my hands. The pen gleamed at the top. Every letter on the page screamed danger. "Just sign," Tariq said softly. "We don't have much time before they need to prep me." I stared down at the papers, pretending to read them through blurry vision. My pulse pounded so loudly I worried he might hear it. I needed to stall. Just a few more minutes. I reached for his hand. "Can you explain it to me again?" I whispered. Tariq tensed, annoyed. "Nia, we talked about this. It's high risk, but it has to be done." "I know, I just want to understand." He inhaled sharply, forced himself to speak calmly. "I'm in danger without the surgery." But earlier I let my voice tremble, unsure. "Earlier you looked okay." His entire body stiffened. He recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. Panic flashed in his eyes. He hadn't expected me to say that, or notice anything. "Nia," he said slowly, "trauma patients can look stable before they crash. Internal bleeding is unpredictable." "Internal bleeding," I echoed softly. "But there was no blood on you when they brought you in." Shanice snorted. "She's trying to be a detective now." "Cute." Tariq barked, "Shut up, Shanice." Then he turned back to me, face red with rising anger. "Nia, you're confused. Everything is happening too fast." "Maybe," I whispered, shrinking again. I probably am." His shoulders relaxed slightly. He thought I was caving. "Good. Just sign," he said again. "Please." "For me." I lifted the pen slowly. My hand shook. I hovered the tip over the paper. His eyes locked onto the movement like a predator watching prey. Shanice leaned closer. Finally, I pressed the pen down just enough to make a tiny dot. Not a signature. A stall. A silent plea, "Ayana, please hurry." Just then, the overhead lights flickered out. All of them. The entire room plunged into darkness. The monitors glitched with a sharp electronic crackle. For one perfect second, none of us moved. Then the emergency backup lights flashed on dim, reddish eerie.
Tariq whipped his head toward the door. What the hell was that? Khanis cursed under her breath. This place is falling apart. Tariq grabbed the clipboard from my hands, furious. We don't have time for this. Sign the damn papers right now. The room's speaker crackled to life above us. Static. Then a voice. Calm. Professional. Female. Code Violet. Unauthorized entry detected in restricted physician zones. All department heads report immediately. Tariq's face drained of color. He looked at the door, then at me, then at Khanis. Bonnie whispered, "Something's wrong." My heart surged with hope so sharp it hurt. Ayana made it. She got into the vault. Tariq dropped the clipboard, chest heaving. "No one moves," he hissed. "If she's involved, if she knows Vaughn will take care of it." But even as he said it, fear crept into his voice. Because he knew. Deep down, something had slipped out of his control. Something big. Khanis picked up the papers and shoved them into my lap. "Sign it before this gets worse." But Tariq wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring at the hallway, at the flickering lights, at the red emergency glow washing over everything like fresh blood. "She's not where she's supposed to be," he muttered. "She's not scared anymore." His eyes cut back to mine, dark, sharp, murderous. He took one step toward me. "What did you do?" My breath caught. I didn't have to answer, because footsteps echoed in the corridor. Fast. Determined. Coming straight for us. Tariq spun toward the door. "Vaughn," he called. But the footsteps didn't slow. They got louder, closer. Then the handle turned. The handle turned so slowly it felt intentional, like whoever stood on the other side wanted us to hear every metallic click, wanted to build the dread in our bones before they even stepped inside. Tariq froze, breath caught halfway in his chest, his eyes locked on the door with the kind of fear only people with something to lose ever feel. Khanis straightened her blouse, trying to look composed, but her shaking hands betrayed her. I sat still in the chair, clutching the clipboard to my chest, not as a shield, but because my fingers needed something to hold, or they would tremble and give me away. The door opened, but it wasn't Vaughn. It wasn't Ayana. It wasn't anyone we expected at all. Two hospital security officers stepped inside, one tall, broad expression stern, the other shorter but sharper, with eyes that scanned the room in a fraction of a second and immediately narrowed on Tariq. "Sir, ma'am," the taller one said, "we're conducting a floor-wide sweep. There's been an unauthorized entry into the restricted physician sector. We need everyone to remain where they are." Tariq exhaled the relief, almost visible, but then quickly covered it with a mask of concern. "Of course," he said smoothly. "This hospital is a mess tonight. My wife has been terrified. I'm recovering from surgery," and the sharp-eyed guard held up a hand. "We'll ask the questions, sir." Khanis folded her arms, annoyed. "We don't have time for this. Dr. Vaughn is supposed to. We're aware of Dr. Vaughn." The guard cut her off. "Where is he now? Not here?" Tariq snapped. "He's dealing with whatever the hell is happening." The guards exchanged a quick look, subtle, but I caught it. They knew something. Something big. My heart raced. Ayana must have gotten to them. Or shown them something. Or no. I couldn't rely on guesses. I had to keep pretending. "Is the hospital safe?" I asked, letting my voice quiver. "My husband almost died tonight. I don't understand what's happening." The taller guard gave me a sympathetic nod. "Mom, we're working on it. There was a breach in the records wing. We're securing all staff and patients." Tariq stiffened. "Records," he repeated too quickly. "What kind of breach?" "That's confidential," the guard said. "But your cooperation would be appreciated." Tariq swallowed, throat visibly tight. He was trying to calculate what they knew and what they didn't, whether they were here for him or just here on routine protocol. But before he could decide, the intercom crackled again overhead. This time, the voice wasn't robotic, wasn't calm. It was panicked. A woman screaming. Security to Sub-Level 3 medical emergency in the server vault. I repeat, medical emergency. The message cut off abruptly. The guards flinched and turned to the door radios already in their hands. "We'll be back," the tall one said. "Do not leave this room." They sprinted out before Tariq could ask any questions. The moment the door clicked shut, Tariq spun toward Shanice and hissed, "Someone's down there," she whispered. Tariq shook his head. He wouldn't call for help. Not unless, and then his face went pale as chalk. "She's alive," he whispered. "The nurse. The one who warned Nia." My heart hammered so violently I worried they'd hear it. I lowered my gaze, quickly pretending not to follow the conversation. Shanice grabbed Tariq's arm. "We need to get out of here and go where he snapped. We're trapped in the middle of a lockdown. We can still make it out through the staff garage," she insisted. "You said Vaughn has people there. And what if they're compromised too?" Tariq barked. "What if she reached them? They were spiraling." I needed that. I needed them off balance, suspicious of shadows instead of me. Tariq paced the room, running his hands through his hair, muttering to himself. "This is wrong. This isn't how it was supposed to go." Vaughn was supposed to send the all clear by now. Tariq, Shanice hissed, "Forget Vaughn. Get the signatures. Take the elevator down. We can escape in 10 minutes. They turned back to me. My stomach dropped. Tariq shoved the clipboard in my face, the papers rattling. "Sign it. Now." I stared at him. This was it. This was the moment everything could collapse or everything could pivot. I let my hand shake as I lifted the pen again. I whispered. "I want to. I really do." But Tariq leaned in so close I could feel his breath on my cheek. "But what?" "I want to see you stand," I said softly. Shanice blinked. What I swallowed hard and looked up at him through tears. "You're saying you're dying, that you've lost so much blood. I just need to see that you're still fighting. Just stand up and I'll sign whatever you want." Tariq's eyes flared with fury. "I'm not performing for you." "Then I can't sign," I whispered. "I'm too scared." Silence. A deadly hanging silence. Shanice broke it with a sharp laugh. "She's buying time." "Tariq, she's stalling." Everything froze when footsteps pounded toward the room. Heavy, frantic, and fast. Tariq stiffened. Is that security? But something about the rhythm, uneven stumbling, told me no. The door burst open. A man staggered inside, his coat soaked in sweat, his mask pulled halfway down, his eyes wild. "Dr. Alistair Vaughn." Tariq gasped. "What happened to you?" Vaughn slammed the door behind him, panting hard, gripping the handle like someone had chased him up the stairs. His right sleeve was stained with blood. His hair was disheveled. His face was terrified. "She," he wheezed. "She took it." Tariq stepped forward. "Who? What are you talking about?" Vaughn looked straight at me, straight into my eyes. And for the first time since I'd met him, I saw genuine fear. "The nurse," he rasped. "She has the footage." My pulse detonated in my ears. Shanice's hands flew to her mouth. "Impossible," she whispered. We trapped her in the sub-level." Vaughn shook his head violently. She wasn't alone. The East Wing guards, they switched sides. Someone tipped them off. He clutched his bleeding arm. She stabbed me with my own syringe. Tariq lunged forward, grabbing Vaughn by the collar. Do they know about the insurance, about the plan? Vaughn stared at him, trembling. They know everything. Tariq's face contorted in rage and fear. We have to run now. We can't, Vaughn said. They've locked down every exit. She radioed the central office. They're coming here. Tariq released him, backing away, palms on his head as he spiraled into panic. No. No, 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 no. This isn't real. Chanice turned to me slowly, eyes narrowing. You knew, she whispered. You knew she wasn't dead. You knew she got to the footage. Tariq rounded on me like a charging animal. What did you do, Nia? He growled. But I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because in that moment, the hallway outside erupted with the thunder of pounding boots. Dozens of them, coming straight toward our door. The walls vibrated. The floor hummed. Vaughn staggered backward. They're here. Tariq's voice cracked. Which team's security or the answer came in the form of a single voice barking through a radio. Open up. Hospital authority investigations. Step away from the patient, Chanice screamed. Vaughn bolted for the window. Tariq grabbed my wrist in a last desperate attempt to use me as leverage. And I, for the first time all night, I didn't tremble. The pounding on the door got louder, each strike rattling the hinges like they were seconds from ripping off. Tariq's fingers dug into my wrist, hard enough to bruise his grip, frantic, desperate, the grip of a man who suddenly realized the world he built on lies was collapsing in real time. Vaughn limped toward the far corner, clutching his wounded arm, sweat dripping down his temples. Chanice paced in tight circles, pulling at her hair. We can still fix this, she whispered more to herself than anyone else. We can still talk our way out of it. Vaughn let out a hysterical laugh. Talk our way out, they have footage. Real footage. And Ayana is giving statements as we speak. Tariq's grip on me tightened. We're not dead yet, he snarled. They can't get to us if we have leverage. His eyes slid to me. I felt my stomach drop. He wasn't thinking rationally anymore. He wasn't even thinking about escape. He was thinking about bargaining chips. And I was the only one in the room vulnerable enough to be used as one. The door jolted again, this time bending inward. Open up, last warning, shouted a firm voice. Tariq yanked me closer, his arm wrapping around my throat. Nobody moves, he hissed at Vaughn and Chanice. When they break in, we'll negotiate. We'll force them to let us walk or she dies. The room froze. For a moment, everything went silent, except for my heartbeat hammering in my skull. Vaughn blinked slowly, a sick realization dawning in his bloodshot eyes. You're insane, he whispered. If you kill her, you'll be executed. Tariq's voice cracked with hysteria. It doesn't matter. If I go to prison for life, I might as well die. Chanice raised her hands, backing away from him. Baby, no. Don't do this. You don't need her. We can SHUTUP, he roared. His spit hit her cheek. She flinched backward. And in that instant, I saw something flicker across her face. Not shock, not fear, but realization. The kind that wounds deeper than anything else. She finally understood what I had known for years. Tariq didn't see women. He used them, manipulated them, discarded them. She had been so convinced she was special. Tonight, she learned the truth. The guards outside began counting down. 5. Tariq's arm tightened across my collarbone until spots danced in my vision. 4. Vaughn pressed himself against the wall, eyes darting wildly like a trapped animal. 3. Chanice whispered shakily. Tariq, please stop. We'll think of something. Don't hurt her. 2. A bead of sweat slid down Tariq's temple. His breath shook against my ear. Don't fight, he whispered to me, or I'll snap your neck before they can reach you. The world tilted. The edges of my vision darkened. The door exploded inward. Splintering wood shot across the floor like shrapnel. 4 armed officers stormed inside, bulletproof vests and tactical helmets gleaming under the hospital light. Guns drawn. "Drop the hostage," one officer barked. "Hands where we can see them." Tariq jerked backward, dragging me with him. "Stay back. I swear to God I'll kill her," his words echoed through the room. Shanice collapsed into a corner, sobbing. Vaughn raised both trembling hands, blood dripping from his sleeve onto the tile. The lead officer took a careful step forward. "Tariq Harrison, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted homicide, insurance fraud, and obstruction of medical operations." "Put your hands—" "Shut up," Tariq screamed. His arm pressed into my throat again. "Nobody touches us unless you want a corpse," the officer held up his free hand. "All right. Let's slow down. We're here to end this peacefully." Tariq shook his head violently. "Peacefully, peacefully, you took everything from me." "She took everything from me." His voice cracked with so much hatred it made my skin crawl. "I gave her a life. I gave her everything." I forced the words through my tightening airway. "You tried to kill me." He squeezed harder. "I gave you everything." His voice broke. "And you couldn't just be obedient." The officer stepped forward half an inch. "Let her go, and we will talk." "No," Tariq said almost softly now. A terrifying softness. "We leave together. Or nobody leaves." Then his fingers twitched, tightened. And I knew. He was seconds from snapping. The officers saw it too. They tensed fingers, tightening on their triggers. Time slowed. My vision tunneled. Tariq inhaled sharply and a metal tray slammed into the back of his head. Hard. He staggered. The chokehold loosened. I collapsed forward, coughing, gasping, and when I turned, Ayana was standing behind him. Hair wild scrubs ripped a second tray, already raised above her shoulder. "Touch her again," she panted, "and I'll crack your skull open myself." Tariq spun, roaring in rage, and charged at her. But before he could reach her, the flashbang of a taser cracked through the air. Tariq's body convulsed, violently, electricity seizing his muscles. His scream ripped through the room. He collapsed onto the floor, twitching arms jerking uncontrollably. Officers swarmed him instantly, pinning him down. "Hands behind your head, do it now. Do not move." His wrists were cuffed, his ankles bound. The electricity stopped. His body went limp. Silence returned to the room, heavy, suffocating, thick with the stench of betrayal and the metallic tang of fear. I lay on the floor, trembling, unable to move for a moment. My throat burned. My lungs screamed. But I was alive. Ayana knelt beside me, touching my face gently. "You're safe," she whispered. "I promised I wouldn't let them hurt you." I felt tears spilling down my cheeks before I even realized I was crying. Behind her, officers dragged Tariq's limp body toward the door. His eyes were open, but unfocused, dazed from the taser. Yet still he searched for me, locked onto me, and for a single haunting second he whispered my name. Not in anger, not in hatred, in disbelief. Nia, like he couldn't understand how I survived, like he couldn't comprehend how his perfect plan shattered because of one woman refusing to die quietly. Officers yanked him through the door. Shanice was cuffed, next crying hysterically. Vaughn was sedated and strapped onto a gurney. And just like that, the monsters were gone. The room was ours again. My body trembled uncontrollably as Ayana helped me sit up. "It's over," she whispered. I shook my head weakly. "No," I rasped. "Not yet." Because the truth was the worst twist of all was still waiting. It should have ended in that room. With Tariq tased on the ground, Shanice sobbing into her handcuffs and Vaughn strapped to a stretcher like the monster he was. It should have ended with officers hauling them away and Ayanna pulling me close, whispering that I was finally safe. But as I sat there on the cold hospital floor, throat-bruised lungs, raw heart still clawing at my ribs, I realized safety wasn't something that appeared the moment evil left the room. Safety had to be rebuilt. Brick by brick, breath by breath, and my foundation was shattered. I barely noticed when paramedics lifted me onto a gurney. I barely heard Ayanna explaining everything to the investigators. Voices blurred together, words like attempted homicide insurance, fraud, falsified records, camera evidence, motive. The world felt far away, underwater, distorted. The fluorescent lights above me slid by slowly as they wheeled me down the hallway, each one washing over my face like white fire. I closed my eyes. But even in darkness, I saw everything. Tariq slipping into the hospital pretending to be injured, his hand gripping my throat, his voice hissing that obedience was all I owed him, his eyes when they dragged him away, furious, stunned, betrayed. When they placed me in an observation room, Ayanna never left my side. She sat in a plastic chair, elbows on her knees, staring at the floor as investigators moved in and out like a tide. The door opened, closed, opened again. Questions, papers, statements. But there was one thing I couldn't stop thinking about. Ayanna, I whispered. Her head snapped up immediately. Yeah, are you hurting? Do you need a doctor? No, I said softly. I just need to ask what happened in the sublevel before you came back. She inhaled slowly, her eyes darkening. You don't need that on your conscience. I already have everything else, I whispered. Tell me. She hesitated, then leaned closer. He cornered me, she said quietly. Vaughn. He tried to destroy the footage. I fought him for the drive. He injected me with something. A sedative. Fast acting. But I grabbed the syringe and hit him back with it before it took me down. We both collapsed. My breath caught. How did you wake up? First, a faint smile ghosted her lips. He overdosed me. She paused. And himself. I stared at her, stunned. She continued softly. He thought he was giving me enough to sedate me for hours, but he mixed the dosage. He hit his own bloodstream harder than he hit mine. When I woke up, he didn't. Her voice didn't waver. Not once. I realized then that Ayanna wasn't just brave. She was someone who had been fighting battles long before she ever walked into my nightmare. You saved me, I whispered. She shook her head. You saved yourself. I just gave you the window. Before I could reply, the door opened and a detective stepped inside, Detective Rowland. Sharp-eyed and calm, the kind of calm that comes from decades of seeing darkness and refusing to let it win. Mrs. Harrison, he said gently, we've identified multiple victims connected to Dr. Vaughn's practice. Dozens of falsified deaths stretching back 5 years. Your testimony and the footage, Ems. Ayanna recovered will break this case wide open. And Tariq. I whispered, my throat tightening around his name. Detective Rowland exhaled. Your husband is being held without bail. He's facing 27 charges. He'll spend the rest of his life in custody. The rest of his life. A man who wanted to strap me to a table and silence me permanently would now spend his days behind locked doors, watched by guards, powerless. But that wasn't the twist that haunted me. The detective hesitated before speaking again. He's also not in good shape physically. Ayanna and I exchanged a glance. What do you mean? I asked. Rowland folded his hands. During the struggle when the taser hit him, he fell hard. Very hard. Imps confirm he fractured his cervical spine. He's lost all movement below the neck. My breath caught. Paralysis. Permanent. Tariq Harrison, who staged a medical crisis to orchestrate my death, now had a real one of his own. "Is he conscious?" I whispered. Roland nodded. "He can speak, but he can't move. Not arms, not legs." A hollow silence spread through the room like smoke. Ayana didn't look away from me. "That's poetic," she murmured. But to me, it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like the final bitter chapter in a cycle he created himself. A violent end to a violent plan. The detective left us alone after taking a few more notes, promising to update me the next morning. Hours crawled by. Nurses came in, checked my vitals, offered warm blankets, offered sedatives, food I couldn't eat, water I could barely sip. Ayana stayed through it all. And when the hospital finally fell quiet again, she turned to me. "There's one thing left," she said. "Closure." I knew what she meant. I wasn't ready, but I nodded anyway. They wheeled me to a secured medical wing. A guard let us in. The room was dim-lit only by a single lamp. And there he was. Tariq lay in a hospital bed, tubes taped to his arms, a cervical brace fixed around his neck machines humming beside him. He couldn't lift his head, could barely turn it, but his eyes moved when we entered. They landed on me, slowly, painfully. His lips parted. "You," he whispered. A rasp. A ghost. I stood beside his bed, heart pounding. "Yes," I said quietly. "Me." His eyes glistened not with tears, but with rage and disbelief. "I was supposed to win," he whispered. "I was supposed to end you." I stepped closer, meeting his gaze with a steadiness I didn't know I possessed. And yet I said softly, "You're the one lying there. The one who can't move. The one who lost everything." His breath hitched. A sob or a growl, I couldn't tell. "This isn't fair." "No," I whispered. "It isn't. It isn't. But you chose every step that led you here." I leaned in just enough that he could see the strength in my eyes. "And I choose to walk away." His chest trembled. "Don't leave me." "You left me a long time ago," I said. Then I turned, nodding to the guard. He opened the door. I walked out, with Ayana beside me, with breath in my lungs, with a future waiting on the other side of sunrise. At the hospital exit, early morning light spilled through the glass doors in soft golden waves. I stepped into it slowly, letting the warmth hit my skin. For the first time in years, I felt weightless, untethered, alive. Ayana squeezed my hand gently. "You did it," she whispered. I shook my head. "We did." And as the sun rose behind us, I took my first free breath in what felt like eternity, leaving the darkness behind me, one step at a time.